division between veteran players, kind of crusty old veterans who are making a lot of money win right now, and younger players who are trying to grow into roles or establish themselves. How would you characterize that with this group right now?
Well, I mean, all I could say is what Bill said the other day is that he heard all that when he got here, and he doesn't feel like that's the case right now, just being around it in different settings, practices, games, going to Vail, seeing them in action at dinner, things like that. And it does seem like a lot of those guys where there might have been divisions years ago are either gone or they grew up to be now having a voice in the locker room. And also, when you're a veteran not performing, it's hard to, come in with that sort of cockiness and feel like you still run the show. So I don't think that a lot of that really, frankly, exists anymore. But there is still the times where, Bruce, to me, he's got to feel. I mean, I just came from L.A. where Kovalchuk's, you're not playing. Toffoli, you're not playing. And to me, it's like Bruce doesn't owe these guys anything. Bruce should be in survival mode, and if he wants to sit a certain veteran or pull him out of the lineup, even he should do it. But the problem is that what's your replacement is still going to be Eck and Greenway and Cunnin, and I mean, we saw last night. I mean, Eck is still as good as that line was. It's and look, the second goal, bad luck. Nobody's stopping that, and the first goal, Eck lost his assignment, but it's still a bad goal by Doobie. But still, it's like Eck has been playing for, 4 or 5 years now? He never, ever scores. So to me, he's got to be perfect defensively. And on 2 face-off plays, on hockey 1-on-1 plays, he loses his guy on both plays. I mean, Kopitar is his guy, and he's the one banging the rebound. And you can see it. He gets tangled up after the draw and then just gets lost. And it just can't happen. It just can't. And Bruce vented about it after the game that he didn't say who it was, but 2 face-off plays that they made mistakes. That's frustrating. And it is, I will say one alarming thing about this team that I've never seen before, because this team is usually so good in his own zone, is that the breakdowns in their own zone all season long have been astronomical. It's hard to explain how players are constantly players that should know better, 4 guys in a corner, or being unaware of guys coming off the bench, or just bad positioning, not finishing checks. They're playing their own zone. It's been terrible this year.
And why is that?
I have no clue. I don't get it. I don't get it, because these players are all experienced NHLers. I mean, look at the play in Nashville when it was Parise, Spurgeon, Suter, Koivu. I mean, that's 3,000 games of NHL experience. That's, 300 or 400 million in long-term contracts right there. Those players, you can't blame that on the coaches, right? I mean, those players should know better, and so I don't get what's going on.
And has Bruce's mood changed at all?
Well, I mean, I think he's just frustrated. I think that he just, he knows they got to get on a run, and he's in it to win it. And he's not doing it. And, look, he's got to be better too. Jason said that last week and or a couple weeks ago, and it blew up. But I mean, it's just true. Everybody's got to be better. Last night it really made no sense to me on a 6-on-5 why you have 3 defensemen out there. Now, I know that Hunt is playing forward up there, but why do you have to go with Suter? Why can't it be Hunt and Spurgeon? I get Dumba just played a minute 14 shift going into the 6-on-5, and I totally understood when Bruce said after the game that he, hindsight's 20/20, but to rest Dumba, he would have had to call a timeout, but LA just iced the puck, so they were tired, so he didn't want to give them a chance to rest. So I totally get that, but why are you going with 3D? It doesn't make sense. Not that they have all these answers at forward, but your forwards up there were Zucker, Stahl, Parise, and Hunt. Why couldn't it have been Hunt and Spurgeon on the back and take a Fiala who was having a good game and put him on the ice, or a Cunnin or a Greenway or something like that? I just still don't understand that. And then how does Suter reward you? He doesn't check Dustin Brown, and they didn't score on that play, but they score right after. So.
I'm going to thank Tony Hoagland here. It's a good time to come up and ask a live question if you're going to. Otherwise, I'll go to some Twitter questions here. We have some good ones. Again, Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund. He's been sponsoring the program and working with the network for a long time. Just check him out. Google him at Tony Hoagland or find him at ChamplinInsurance.com. Champlin, like the town, insurance.com.
Hi, Talk North listeners. I wanted to let you all know about State Farm's new program called Quotes for Good. We partner with local nonprofits to raise money for great causes. For the Russo-Souhan Show, I'll be donating $16 to the Jason and Carly Zucker Give 16 campaign that benefits the University of Minnesota Masonic Children's Hospital. When you call in, be sure to mention the show so that we can track the donations. You can reach us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at champlininsurance.com.
Any other topics you want to get to before we go to questions?
I do always like to be able. So I think I've told this before, but Bob Mason, the goalie coach for the Wild, one of his really good friends from International Falls is Johnny Hawks. And Johnny was at the game yesterday. I just always love chatting with the guy. Yeah, Deadwood and Eastbound and Down. He was in the Three Billboards movie. Yep. He's in a couple movies right now. Purple Something Falcon or something like that. The guy is just cool as, father. It's just always cool. He wears this this little hat, and he's always in a blazer, and he's just cool, man. So I always love chatting with him. And he's a full throttle Wild fan, so it's pretty cool.
By the way, Father, I know he cusses every once in a while on the show just to offend you. If you're easily offended, do not watch Deadwood.
Yeah. And it's funny because, and I haven't seen Deadwood or Deadwood the movie, but I've seen it. No, that'll be next what I binge watch. I'm finishing Breaking Bad right now.
Deadwood it's fascinating. It's like it's this old school Western set in this little gold mining town. But the language is like Shakespearean. Yeah. It's fascinating. So
when I met him like 7 or 8 years ago, we went out, a bunch of us with Mason, and we sat outside the JW Marriott in LA Live, and he was sitting there. And then it was like a Friday night. The Wild were playing on a Saturday. On Sunday, he was nominated for an Oscar for that movie Winter's Bone. And I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I cannot believe I'm hanging out with this guy 2 days before he might win an Oscar. And he's just the coolest dude. So, and he's proud Minnesotan.
Well, now you can name drop people from the movie industry, from the music industry, from the sports industry.
Hey, I'll double down. So I'm going to see Trampled by Turtles.
I knew you would.
How about this? Saturday night, I'm covering the Wild game against Carolina at 1. I'm going to write the worst article ever.
You've done worse.
In the fastest possible way because I got to sprint to Mankato because I'm going to see Trampled by Turtles with Stolhansky. So... And his lovely wife, Babs.
We need to get a gong or something. Every time he name drops, we hit the gong, and he has to donate $1 to charity or something.
I'm going to see a band that I'm friends with a movie star. There you go.
Keep going. Just keep telling us who else you know.
It's so much better than covering the Wild or talking about the Wild.
Yeah, I can tell your heart's in it tonight.
Yeah. What else is going on, everybody? Any other questions?
Johnson from Wisconsin, our longtime listener, asks, what does Greenway need to do to become more of a finisher? Is there someone on the team who can mentor him in that skill?
It's funny because last year when Mike Modano got here, Jordan Greenway was actually texting with Modano back and forth because I think that there's a lot of respect there, and maybe he's somebody that can. I think that Mike's trying to be as hands-off with the hockey ops as he can so he doesn't feel like he's overstepping his bounds, but that wouldn't hurt at all. But look, sometimes guys are what they are. It's kind of what I always said about Charlie Coyle. If you look at Charlie's history, except when he was in juniors, when he was sort of a man amongst boys, his history was never as a scorer. And it's sort of that same way I see with Greenway. He shows, but to get to the question, I mean, for him to score more, he's got to be at the net more. He's got to shoot more. We don't see it, but these guys just don't score. I mean, last night, again, that Cunnin, Eriksson, Greenway line was outstanding. They were in the offensive zone all night, yet Cunnin doesn't score on an incredible chance. Ek blows a couple chances. Greenway doesn't score on an incredible chance. I mean, this is just, who they are. They're young. You hope they could develop it, but I don't see how any of these guys are just going to turn into a goal scorer magically. I remember when Olli Jokinen was in Florida, he got there and you watched him in practice and you saw it. And then all of a sudden he became a 30-goal scorer every single year. But you saw it in practice. Even in practice with these guys, you just don't see it. I think they're all good NHLers, but they They are what they are. And so what your hope is that Boldy can turn into that maybe they got a great pick in this Kovanov kid that Torchetti swears by in Moncton right now. And obviously Kaprasov's coming next year. So there's your hope that some of these guys could turn into top scorers, but that right now, prospect-wise in the organization, it's really probably slim pickings. I think they still have good guys. I was talking to a scout. I was talking to Joe O'Donnell on another podcast that I do on the Athletic app. Where, Joe O'Donnell is their Iowa Wild play-by-play guy, and I told him the other day, this Duham kid that went to Providence is from South Florida. The scout was raving about him to me a couple of weeks ago, but he's not a goal scorer. He's just going to be a hard-working checker that's probably going to play in the NHL. Mayhew could score at the AHL level. Can he at the NHL level? And even at 27, do you consider him a prospect? Probably not. They have Belpedio and Minell, but they're defensemen. So there's just they don't have a ton of prospects that have a perennial history of scoring. Father?
Yes, sir.
So I know that Guerin has said he really wants to see the team. He wants to learn them, watch them, and those. And I know that this is looking down the road further, trying to find that hope. But when does the trade conversation really start in earnest? Yeah. Given what's there, where some players' stock, some of the veterans on the team right now, their stock is higher. Thinking of like Stahl, for example. Right. Now I know there's all kinds of circumstances that we can't. But when does Bill kind of begin to say, "All right, I see what we've got. I know we can trade," because I look at the Senators and, ownership issues aside, they've got 2 first-round draft picks that they're sitting on, and that is kind of exciting. Yeah. We've got, Krill waiting, and if we could have 2 first-round draft picks this year.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I do think that's why I was a little surprised that Stahl wasn't somebody that was moved last year by Paul. I think that's what he was trying to do with Zucker. I think it was going to be Frolik in a first. So it did seem like Paul was sort of like, it was like a give and take. It's like he was like, all right, we're going to re-sign Stahl, but then we're going to go trade Zucker and get a first. And we're going to go, I don't know, nothing seemed to connect. And Billy's going to have to figure that out. And Stahl, again, he does have a modified no trade list that will affect at least the teams that he's willing to do. I think we all know that Eric is probably not going to play ball. There's 20 teams that he could be dealt to, and there you go. But I'm not going to sit there and wave. His whole goal was to stay here. So, Mikko is another one. He's got a full no move. He's going to have to decide at some point if this team goes the way that we all think it's going. He's going to have to decide: do I want to end my career in Minnesota and go out with that prestige of playing in one place for his entire career, perhaps? Or does he want to go for a couple months, go try to win a cup elsewhere? Mike Gutt says right now that he's going to want to stay. And so from that point on, from there or else, there's not a lot of other options with the veterans. So then you start worrying about, all right, is he going to trade kids? And then you have to really be concerned, are you trading a kid too early? Are you going to watch Kevin Fiala break out elsewhere? Are you going to watch Ryan Donato break out elsewhere? There are teams calling. I know for a fact, I know one team that's already shown some interest in Steeler. They're seeing what's going on here, and usually when a team is struggling, and you have a rookie GM, there are other teams that are going to be trying to pounce, and so I do think there's a point where he's going to start talking to these teams more seriously. But that's sort of what I meant in my story the other day, is that even if you decide that you're ready to trade guys, you have to you have to have a clear, concerted path on which way you're going to go. Whether that's trading for futures, whether that's trying to get impact players at the same time, whether it's just doing nothing and letting this thing maybe finish 30th and 31st and doing nothing to try to worsen your lottery odds. Well,
that was going to be kind of my second question was, do other GMs, morality aside of it, which is weird for me to say, but do other GMs try to take advantage of rookie GMs?
Well, let's put it this way: when Don Waddell wanted Jason Zucker after the Nino Niederreiter Victor Rask trade, he didn't get a call back from Paul Fenton, and I think it's because he took advantage of There was one GM. It was a famous line. there was there was one GM, and I'm going to get it wrong, so I almost don't want to say it, but there was one GM that years ago that he famously said, the worst thing you want to do is try to rob